Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos en este acto de presentación del estudio
event for the presentation of the study on the factors for success of the Director of Communications or the Chief Communications Officer. Please allow me a few welcoming words to this event that brings us together today. This is my first participation as the President of Corporate Excellence. Iberdrola, as you know, has given the relay to Telefónica, who has led the presidency till the past month of December. In the name of the patronate and the corporate excellence, and in my own, we want first of all to express our very sincere thanks to Luis Abril for the great task performed in the launching of this magnificent project, which is corporate excellence, and of course, because of his contribution to the improvement both of corporate and business reputation and the other issues that this foundation is involved in. As you all know, because you've known us for a long time, Corporate Excellence is a think tank created around the management of key intangible assets such as reputation, brand, communication, public affairs, the metrics and training. Just to remind you, we are a foundation that was created by 6 big companies, BV, VA, La Caixa, Iberdrola, Repsol, Santander, and Telefónica, and other 10 large companies have joined us, both public and private companies, Adif, Agbar, Bankinter, Correos, Danone, El Corte Inglés, Gas Natural Fenosa, Meliá Hotels International, Renfe, and Mafre. Please allow me to take this opportunity to say a few words of thanks to our partners and members for their commitment in this initiative that arises or stems from the conviction that we are facing a new economic cycle in which business success is necessarily based on the management of key intangible assets such as reputation, brand, communication, public affairs, and the development of metrics which are non-financial metrics, and the continuous or ongoing training of professionals in charge of managing these key intangible assets. So large companies, the ones I've mentioned and other ones in the country, are in these difficult times giving an example of true leadership that has been key for the launching in a record period of below 2 years of 26 programs in collaboration with 43 academic institutions, and that have produced the 23 workshops, the drafting of over 70 technical documents, and the production of around 50 videos. The study that we're going to present today on the success factors of the Chief Communications Officer is one of the most important documents that has been drafted by the Foundation Corporate Excellence. Please excuse me. It is a very important document. And as a professional of the discipline that brings us here today, because I've been working for 10 years as the Chief Communications Officer of Iberdrola, I can assure you that our profession is becoming more and more complex, and as you are all aware, is constantly changing. Because of that, I think it is very important to benefit from the studies like the one we are presenting today that allow us to identify the challenges that we face and that clarify the functions that we have to develop to contribute to the success of our companies. I want to congratulate Professor Sives van Riel, who is a great expert in corporate communication and member, as you know, of our advisory committee, for the wonderful work that they've carried out. I also want to thank for their work the other members of our advisory committee, which brings together important international experts in intangible assets management, and that come both from the academic and the professional world. Some of us are with us today. I want to take this opportunity also to express our thanks to the business school ESADE, which welcomes us in our home today, and that holds simultaneously the presentation of this study with the closing ceremony of the executive program, the Global Chiefs Communication Officers. And many of the students are here. This program, as you know, has taken place during the last year to train the future chief communications officers, and we have jointly designed it with ESADE in corporate excellence, with the collaboration of universities as important as the North American Georgetown University, which is the cradle of institutional relationships, and Columbia, that has always been at the forefront of the corporate communication. I want to congratulate the 14 students that have attended this first edition, coming from very different companies: Abertis, BBVA, ESADE, Iberdrola, La Caixa, Repsol, Santander, and Telefónica, and corporate excellence itself. Tomorrow they will have the graduating ceremony, having finished this training program, and for that I want to congratulate you once more very warmly. I would also like to refer briefly, express my thanks to the first-class human team that we have in corporate excellence. To my left is Angela Lloza, who is the executive director of CEO, and we can be very proud of for their work and their skill in their approach to the projects that we have launched. Finally, and so as not to bore you too much with this introduction, I've been asked to announce a surprise, and that is the launching that we do today of the application of corporate experience for mobile devices, for tablets and telephones. That is going to be explained in a video that our people has prepared, and that will be very telling, I think. So let's look at it.
excelente trabajo, la verdad. Bueno, estoy seguro de que esta aplicación va a ser un éxito. Os animo a todos.
I encourage all of you present in this room and those of us who are following us through streaming or tweeting to download CE Reputation to be at the forefront in the management of intangible assets and to access all of the contents that we are generating in corporate excellence. So please download it, use it, and help us, if possible, to improve it, because I'm sure we can do that all. So that's all. I want to give the floor now to our General Director, Ángela Lloza, for him to continue with this event. You have the floor, Ángel. Thank you very much, José Luis. Well, as our President has already said, tomorrow we have the graduation of the 14th students of the first edition of the program, the Global Chief Communication Officers, which is our star activity in the area of training, and that I have been privileged to support in these 9 months of hard work. Since we are talking about surprises, I also want to announce that on the next month of June this year, we shall begin the second edition of this high management program. And please allow me a few words to explain what it is about, why we have designed it, and why it is a unique opportunity for everybody dealing with the management of key intangibles such as the brand, the communication, reputation, and public affairs. We are convinced that companies need to manage these intangibles to compete, to differentiate itself, to create short and long-term value. That is the target. And the program, the Global Chief Communication Officers, focuses on the issues that are necessary to improve the knowledge and skills required by this function. Therefore, the goal is to strengthen the figure of the Chief Communications Officers to ensure in companies and institutions the excellent management of intangible assets. Secondly, I'd like to emphasize the reputation of the academic institutions and universities that we collaborate with, such as Georgetown University, Columbia University, and ESADE Business School. As you can see in the brochure that we have given you, the program that we shall begin in June has 3 modules. Each one lasts a week, and they are distributed throughout 9 months. And 9 months, it's like a joke, because during that 9 months period, there have been 2 births in this group of students. So double congratulations. In the first module, we tackle the issues that the new role in the company demands in society and the necessary tools for the correct reading of the social context. And we will deal with that in the cradle of geopolitics, which is in Washington, D.C., Georgetown University. The second module is devoted to innovation in reputation, brand and communication, and to the new digital environment. And this module is taught in the most advanced center in these disciplines, which is the University of Columbia in New York. And the third module is taking place this very week, and this is held in this headquarters of ESADE, and it focuses on the leadership profile that must sustain the function of the Chief Communications Officer. And this module, we started on Monday this week, and we're going to finish it tomorrow. The key or the star moment is when one of the teachers, who is Van Riel, is going to share with us the contents of a piece of research that he has been performing, mandated by Corporate Excellence throughout all of this year. And to have a better knowledge of the program that we have prepared for the next edition, we're going to show you another very brief video.
Para competir en los mercados globales del siglo XXI, las empresas tienen que dotarse de líderes capaces de entender el contexto social y el nuevo rol de las organizaciones.
And Corporate Excellence, in collaboration with the SADE Business School, has designed a pioneer program. We have designed a program for people in charge of intangible assets management, because these will be vital for the future, sustainable future of the companies. We are convinced that corporate excellence demands professionals who can really understand the social context and that can be excellent in the management of all of these intangible assets, so that they can make their institutions or organizations in leaders in the management of their own reputation.
Corporate communications needs to be a truly strategic discipline. That means it must focus on every element and touch point of the company's brand and on every stakeholder for its business.
The
Global CCO program is held in high reputation schools and business schools through 3 strategic modules: geopolitics, communication, and leadership. It has world-class teachers and performs a lot of case studies. It's interesting that the program is held in 3 very different cities. That is a great contribution. It's interesting the introduction of the topics by the teachers combined with the case studies. Throughout the programs, students develop in groups the strategic communication plan to strengthen all of the knowledge acquired and put into practice what they've learned.
Competencias que han asimilado a lo largo de todo el programa. Te permite identificar las repercusiones de la actividad de comunicación sobre todo.
It allows us to identify the repercussions of the communication activity on all the activities of the company. We work in teams and with the collaborations of the people in charge of the organizations.
Leadership needs and the challenges that they face. And we make sure that they leave with the best practices, frameworks, and measurement tools that will help them to work across the departments of their organization and demonstrate the value of integrated communications as a top-level strategic priority.
The Global CCO program brings along all of the tools that a chief communications director must manage to achieve corporate excellence, the management of key intangibles, reputation, brand, communication, and public affairs. It is a program that helps you understand how important the communications activity is from its global perspectives. I really think it touches upon all of the relevant topics for good chief communications offers, from traditional communication, social networks, the international environment, corporate identity, reputation. The teachers are really very good, real experts in their areas. You really have to work hard to be able to participate.
That they're ready to step up to the next level of leadership and to build its strength in an increasingly competitive and global world.
We invite you to participate in the second edition of this top-level program that we have developed with the best business schools to train the communications officers of the future and contribute to the sustainment of the development of sustainable businesses. So now, Professor Oraval will tell us a bit more about the program. Thank you, Ángel. In fact, I think that the program has very well explained with this video. Perhaps we could just emphasize a few of the ideas a bit more. First of all, it is an innovative program because it combines the academic, the more profound academic knowledge as a result of research with the experiences and best practices of companies that are innovative companies. And this advanced knowledge as a result of research, in part research performed by Corporate Excellence, like the one Professor Van Riel will present to us in a few minutes. We can emphasize a few features of the program. First of all, that it gives its participants a profound knowledge of the social reality in the global context, a knowledge of the big problems and challenges that societies and citizens face nowadays. We right now face problems such as food at world level, healthcare, and drinking water, waste, the greenhouse effect, and many problems that we have not found real solutions for. But we do find companies that are approaching these problems in their strategic plans for development. The president of Unilever, I was with him in Barcelona yesterday, and he was making a presentation through a number of practical examples of how they're dealing with some of these problems, but not as a marginal department of social corporate responsibility, but really in the framework of their strategy of sustainable development. The second feature of the program that I'd like to tell you about is that it contributes to the development of personal knowledge and skills that are necessary to help organizations to create a sustainable differentiation. Nowadays, no company can differentiate itself via product, but they have to do that through a sustainable differentiation, which is very much based on the demands and expectations of the main stakeholders of the organizations. And in fact, the Chief Communications Officer is the person that stands between the organization and the key stakeholders. And thirdly, we can say that the program strengthens the understanding of how communication, brand, reputations are levers that are continuously contributing to the improvement of organizations. And we do that in the program with the knowledge that is explained or that is given about the metrics and the measurements that we can use to have the key to innovate in the area of intangible assets. Finally, the program offers the way towards a positive leadership, which is characteristics of the people that work to contribute value to their organizations and for their organizations to contribute value to society. And that is the real reason for companies' existence beyond their own economic benefit. So the learning model of these courses is a dynamic model, as people in the video have said, in which presentations by teachers are combined with case studies and the analysis of real case situations, visits to companies, etc. An important asset of the program also is the interaction between the very participants, people that come from different areas of activity and who also work in different functional areas. Finally, I'd like to emphasize a bit more the project of solidarity. This morning, since the course is about to finish, the participants of the first edition of the program have made a presentation of their projects that tried to give a practical solution to problems presented a few months ago by a number of organizations. And what they were aiming for with this project is for them to have an opportunity to apply to a real case the knowledge that they have acquired during the previous modules in the program, as well as to develop the skills and competences that have been discussed during the course. So we have had the presentation for 4 organizations, UNICEF, AMRE, Flying Doctors, Intermon of AMPS, and DTI, which you might not be familiar with, but which is a world model for organ transplant.
Bien, el hecho de haber escogido estas organizaciones para realizar este
The fact that we have chosen these organizations to perform this practical work, we believe it's a great choice, because we help participants to get out of their daily business reality and to apply their knowledge to realities which very often
por personas dedicadas a causas justas, y que yo diría que es una buena colaboración para entender
for just causes, and I think it's a good collaboration to understand in practical terms the meaning of this positive leadership that should be really very much in contact with business ethics. And with that, I give the floor back. So we have designed a unique program in Europe for the management of intangible assets. Most of you who are here either physically or virtually, because you're connected with us through streamers, the different associations that represent a collective of almost 100,000 people who work in this environment. And for that, we have designed this program to be able to help all of the professionals involved in intangible assets management to improve the way their organizations did with them. And now we're going to listen to the conference about the key factors for the success of chief communications officers. And we're going to attend the world premiere of the conclusions of this research performed by or driven by Corporate Excellence, based on the qualitative surveys of 117 directors of communication or chief communications officers from big companies in the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, Holland, Brazil, Mexico, and Chile. Van Riel is a professor of corporate communication in the Rotterdam School of Management at the Erasmus University and co-founder of the Reputation Institute. He has published several books and articles on corporate communication, which are a benchmark for us. From his first book, Corporate Communication in 1992, his more recent publications focus on the management of reputation, and among them we can emphasize Fame and Fortune, which he co-authors with Charles von Brum, and for which he received the Erasmus Research Institute of Management Award for Impact on Management Practice in 2006. Another book of great success has been Essentials of Corporate Communication, published in 2007, and we hope the new book which we have published, Corporate Excellence, is as successful, which is the English title is The Alignment Factor, to alignment for success. Van Riel has worked as a consultant for communication strategy for a great variety of international companies, and among them we can emphasize Coca-Cola, Delta, FedEx, IBM, etc. And without further ado, we give him the floor to enlighten us with his conference on the key factors for the success of the Chief Communications Officer.
In Spanish, because I don't master that, unfortunately. Thank you very much for coming and to listening to what is the topic of this evening. But before that, I really like to. I have to. Well, the first words were not that relevant, so. So, this is more clear.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So it's good to be here. And before I turn to the research, I really like to express my admiration to Corporate Excellence and Esade for having this new course, which I think really fulfills a great need and really is answering the questions that companies have in this field. So kudos to you all. It's a very good initiative, and I hope that it will be a great success. This project has been created out of curiosity. I've been in the field for quite some years, just like many other people that I've been talking to in the last decade. Among them, Angela Lossa, who came to Reputation Institute conferences for years on a row, and we always had a peculiar feeling, and maybe you have that feeling too. That is, why do some people become CCO while others are not? And why? That's the second question that irritates me most, by the way. Why do CCOs make less money than other people in the C-suite? That is, that was the starting point of this study. Probably we formulated it a little bit different to make it more an academic type of study, but that is the origin of the study, so to speak. So there's a lot already said about this topic. This is not the first study, and it will not be the last study, but it's a different study. It's a different focus point. Like I said, it's born out of curiosity, and curiosity can only be satisfied if you find answers to those type of questions. Why is the guy at the top of the hill different from all the other guys around him? That's point two. And why is the remuneration so limited relatively speaking, because you don't have to pity them at all, but they do make less money compared to the other people in the C-suite. Now what's going on? If you look at the developments in, let's say, the last 2-3 decades, you see a shift in the demands and in the selection criteria that are applied to select CCOs. CCO, by the way, is an abbreviation for Corporate Communication Officer. That is the new corporate lingo. You have the CFO, the CEO, the CMO. You know, it's whatever word you are using. Some people just call it the communication director, but let's call it for the time being the CCO. Okay. Now there's a change, and that change has a lot to do with the conditions actually in which companies have to work nowadays, and the conditions that they have been working in the past, and especially 20-30 years ago. It used to be totally acceptable, for all kinds of good reasons by the way, to appoint an old journalist, an ex-journalist. Nothing wrong about journalists. I've been a journalist myself, so I don't blame anybody. I'm just making an observation that a lot of people used to be journalists and were proud to stay a journalist when they entered the company. Now that has changed. That has changed tremendously. The old style ex-journalists that wanted to be the independent criticaster inside the organization, that has shifted. A CCO is just like all other managers in companies, is just a manager. It's a manager, it's a professional. It's not the external, liberated, independent criticaster. That's gone. We now have people in these type of roles who are formally the representative of a company, just like a CMO and a logistic manager, etc., etc. There's another thing that's changing, and that's a tremendous change. And I know that many of you have experienced that change already for a long period of time. That's the 24/7 aspects of the job and the so-called globalization job aspect of the job. 24/7 is simple. 24/7 means that you have to work 24 hours, 7 days a week. So you have to work extremely hard, not only because you have to serve the people inside headquarters where you are located, but also because you have to serve a broad range of people who live in different time zones and who do not care that you are in a different time zone, because they have to be served. And that's what your role is. And then you can say you can outsource to other people, but that's not how it works. That's point one. Globalization is something totally different.
I firmly believe that the new CEO, the man on the hill, the woman on the hill, will be bilingual in the near future. It is totally unacceptable that many people in communications functions are only speaking one language. That is something that will change in the near future. So be prepared, that's what's going on. It might be Chinese, by the way, that you have to speak, but be prepared for the necessity to be bilingual, with all consequences involved. There are many studies, as I said, that already focused on this topic of what makes a CCO excellent. And many make statements about it. They make statements like the Korn Ferry Institute, that's an executive search firm, and an executive search firm that actually is doing a lot of executive search for people who will become the new CCO. And what they especially stress is that multi-dimension aspects. And the aspect that has been said by many, that communication directors, the CCO, have to be strategists. What they actually mean is that they have to be involved in a wide range of decision-making processes in the organizations. That's a very important point I like to continue talking about in a while from now. This is my personal view about what a CCO actually should do. This is not coming out of literature. This is not what people report to you. This is what I observe when I see people in organizations that really make the distinction. But let's be fair, I've been doing this type of work now for more than 25 years, 30 years. I've seen many of them. I saw stars and I saw disasters. Stars are by definition capable of the balancing act of keeping 5 to 10 balls at the same time in the air, and these balls are representing two crucial things. One is maintaining, or if you don't have it, building, but especially maintaining legitimacy, keeping the lights to operate for the organization, staying within the law, being acceptable, a little bit a grey mouse, a little bit dull, but it's crucial. Being distinctive is the other side. It's the other ball that you have to keep in the air with all the elements related to that. Distinctiveness is more the branding aspect of the CCO role, which says a lot about why you are different, why you have a narrative that is highly appealing. That is the game that the top CCO really performs excellent on. Managing the balance between the necessity to be legitimate and the necessity to be distinctive. Now there's a gray area between these things. And the one who loses the job are those who are too much sticking to legitimacy or too much to distinctiveness. It's that movement that keeps the balance, that creates, let's say, a distinction. That's a general statement, of course, but that general statement has to be understood in the context of a lot of developments that people are confronted with who are doing this job. Of course, it has a lot to do with 24/7. It has to do with globalization. It also has a lot to do with the digital revolution. It's killing, if you ask me. I just read an article in the airplane that says that all these, our minds, our brains are changing tremendously by the use, the overuse, the over-abusement maybe, of all the digital information that comes to you. It changes the structure of your brains, simply resulting in the following: you can't concentrate anymore. That's a problem. And communication people who are forced to do this all the time have a problem in that consequence. It looks like a lot of new opportunities, but it also drives people totally nuts, if you ask me, simply because it limits their degree of processing information. We live in the reputation economy, there's no doubt about it. Everybody understands that reputation is a vital factor for organizations. what not many people seem to recognize, what we've shown with a Reputation Institute study, that a lot of companies actually are only in the first stage of maturity of creating all the steps that have to be executed in the company to come to mature reputation management strategy. Now that's the context in which the CCO has to operate. So he's totally confused, he or she is totally confused, and the key question is, so what to focus on and who to focus on? What do other studies show so far? Now, first of all, you have a famous R2Page Society study that actually confirms what I just said about the ex-journalist and the new manager, the professional manager, the business school trained manager. What you see that in the old days, and then here's 1945, but I think it has continued until in the early 80s actually, that the ex-journalist was the role model for, let's say, the corporate communication officer. This has changed. In the last episode of the 90s, late 90s so to speak, strategy, planning, that became the parole. We totally have stepped away from that. And now the new trend is much more based on the acceptance that you can't impact all. That's impossible. We have to accept that we can't control everything as an organization. It's impossible. So leave freedom to people, persuade people, and actually try to provide arguments which people will use themselves to come to decision making. That's the new strategy that companies have to perform. So don't push them, just seduce them. That's actually the word. Don't push them, but seduce them. And it's like love, not every seducement works. And that's exactly the same with companies and with CCOs. And that's what people accept. So it's more, maybe it should be the CCD, the CCS, the Corporate Communication Officer of Seducement. That actually is the near future. You are more the shepherd of the enterprise. That's the wording of the R2Page Society. You are more taking care of a whole group of people. I don't know if you ever saw a herd of sheep. They walk in every type of direction, and it's very hard to manage these things. That's exactly what CCOs are supposed to solve. We are no longer in control. That's a crucial statement. We are no longer in control. However, I'm too pragmatic to accept that. If you are no longer in control, you could say, yeah, let it go. Let's just stop and let people do the things that they want to do. That's, of course, impossible. That's against nature of an entrepreneur, of somebody who wants to change something. So, of course, you have to fight. Of course, you have to seduce. Of course, you have to try to realize something that is positive for your organization. But do realize, and let the CEO and the board and the other members of the C-suite realize, that it is not a guarantee of success that the attempt that you apply. So accept this. What do the studies of the R2Page Society reveal? 3 important things. It's no more dual relationships, dyadic type of relationships. It's a network relationship. You have to not only position the organization by all these traditional communication tricks, you have to define the corporation from an authenticity point of view. There's a pure necessity to stress the authenticity factor in the organization. Lying does not work at all. If you have a claim to fame, you have to substantiate that with evidence. And that's, well, sounds like an open door, so to speak, but it's not, because too many people still rely on that with all consequences involved. You have to change realities both internally and externally. That requires quite some investments in, let's say, the role of the CCO. The CCO must master 4 elements in the eyes of the friends of the R2Page Society. The R2Page Society is the professional organization of top people in the United States in CCO roles. I think you have no more than 200-300 members, and you are only a member on invitation. I'm a member of that organization, not because I'm a good CCO, not at all, because I'm an academic from Europe, and they need an academic from Europe, most probably. That's the. But I'm in their meetings. Now, if that's the requirements, if it is legitimacy versus distinctiveness that you have to manage, if it is actually something that you can't control, how can you understand, just simply understand, what the CCO requirements are? We looked at 4 different lenses, through 4 different lenses. Lens 1 was, and that was a study that we did for BBVA a couple of years ago. There was a study aimed at what actually determines excellence of the departments. So when you have an excellent department, it has a lot to do, of course, when you have an excellent CCO. It's not the same, but it's related. Secondly, what kind of skills are needed? Well, that is a very simple question, simple answer to that. You have three different skills. The one is the art of communication. So you have to be able to write, to persuade people, to make things appealing. Like when you see this design here that's applied by corporate excellence, you can see it's from 10 miles. That's a very distinguishing type of creations. The art of communication. You have the science of communication, which means that you know the recent theories, that you know the metrics, etc. And then you have the art and science of management. You just have to be a professional manager. So the art of communication, the science of communication, and the art and science of management. Those are the skills. Now in the past, it was only the first aspect. These old journalists and all these other people were mastering the art of communication. They did not master the science of communication, and not at all did they master the management tool, so to speak. You just have to manage people. You have to fire people. You have to do appraisals with people. You have to make planning systems, etc., etc. That's part of the game too. Next to that, you have to know in which maturity degree phase your organization is. And last but not least, and that's a frightening one, because I have some frightening data about that, is what do CEOs actually think about you? It's an interesting observation. Now, let's look at the first one. That is, that's the so-called BBVA study, because BBVA sponsored this study. That was your time when we were allowed to fly all over the world and see interesting things. Thank you very much. We still enjoy that. And what we did, actually, we came up with this. We came up with this in conjunction with the people of BBVA. What did we do? We actually said, in the end, what determines success of a CCO department is driven by 6 factors. 6 factors that drive excellence of a department. In this case, a global corporate communication department. First of all, it's about having clarity in starting points. What is that? That is simply you have to know what your core purpose is as an organization. The purpose, not the vision, the purpose, the old question that we all learned in church, why are we on earth? That's exactly the same question that you have to answer when you start a professional corporate communication department. Why? What's the purpose? What makes people run? What motivates people? Based on that, you define starting points in your communication, but you have to have a purpose first. Secondly, you have to have a very effective global communication organization, meaning you have to have the right coordination mechanism. You have to have regular meetings with people. You have to have the right IT infrastructure. You have to create stakeholder alignment, both internally and externally. You have to create, of course, a positive reputation, build a strong brand, and an effective implementation, so really impactful type of communication. That results in what you see here, that you can monitor the consequences of doing the right things here with a dashboard that shows the metrics that are all discussed in this course that is that is given here, and of course that results in nice outputs for the company, a good Net Promoter Score, willingness to work for the company, etc., etc. That's what we did. Next, we were interested in the question, so what do we know about the maturity of the fields? As I said, that is a study that we that we did as Reputation Institute, in which we distinguished 5 levels of maturity, and it's far too complicated to show the detail, but I guess that people can download the presentation, so you can see it on the presentation in very detailed type of steps. What are these 5 phases? But important for this audience at this moment is that only 13%, these 10 and that 3, are in stage 4 and 5. In line with not what the researchers observed, what the respondents reacted to a questionnaire. This is not the Reputation Institute conclusion, this is the conclusion of the people that were interviewed. Well, modestly so, but if you are still in stage 1 and 2, which is more than 50% of the population, then don't expect to have what I just will distinguish in a couple of minutes from now, a 4-star CCO. You won't find them, because the degree of maturity of the reputation management function is simply not developed yet. So there are some steps to be taken. Those are the steps that you have to take, blah, blah, blah. Now, let's turn to the CEO. What I noticed many times is I've been running such a program already for a couple of years in Rotterdam too, at Erasmus University. And we have a lot of people who write an individual thesis. We do not do a project, we do individual theses. And many of these theses are about their own work, of course. So what increases the effectivity of sponsoring? How do I improve the employee alignments? Blah, 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 all kinds of statements. What do most people do then who are participating in such a program? Interviewing communication people, how they look at it, making case studies and listening to other communication people. That's fine. That's fine, but it's like asking the chicken whether or not he will be on the dinner table that same evening, isn't it? So it's a little bit a colored perspective to base your information only on what communication people have to say if you want to understand what communication people are doing. It might be, I'm putting it very carefully, it might be a little bit wiser to ask people who are actually the bosses, or more important, the clients of those corporate communication departments that are really reporting what they see as having added value or not having added value. So that was one of the advices of the RTPage Society too. So what they showed is that in their own vision, the RTPage people, so these 300 top Americans, so to speak, they consider themselves to be more valuable than ever, likely to increase in value going forwards, blah, 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 blah. We are great. However, our bosses have some critical observations about who we are. So not all CEOs agree on the C-suite status, point 1, but they also have very, let's say, critical observations about CEOs. Now this is an interesting study. This is one of the people that wrote his thesis in that program that we are doing in Rotterdam, and he came with this. This is a very simple model, but it's a very, very insightful model. This is based on interviews with the 25 top companies in the Netherlands, all 25 listed companies in the Netherlands, all CEOs. And these CEOs, and I won't mention names nor mention numbers, but a lot of these people actually stated that companies were here. They have a practical CCO who is purely defensive. You know what that is? That's, let me just give one example. That's the building and construction industry, for instance. And what does the CEO there expect his CCO to do? Keep away the press, write a press release. Oh, you need a website nowadays. Now, go on, make a website. But that's it, eh? That's it. No more than that. Just keep them out. Let's keep a low profile, and that's enough. It's better to be known a little and hated a little than being known very much and taking the risk that they started to hate us. That's the attitude. This is the ideal that, of course, communication people would like to see most. This is a strategically focused CCO which has a focus on offensive type of approach in the market. That's what I will call later on the CCO, the 4-star CCO. That's the top of the CCOs. Why? Because he is so excellent or she is so excellent? No way. Because he works in an industry where it is allowed. He works in an industry where the degree of maturity and reputation management is advanced, and he has a CEO who likes to see this done. It's totally different, of course. Eh? The poor guys and women who are working for the building and construction companies are faced with totally different type of challenges. Eh? That's, of course, what you have to realize. Now, what should an ideal CCO do? That's what you can take out of literature. You have to be an integrator. You really have to work in line with the C-suites, so the corporates, the top of the organization, and the rest of the organization. You have to be a system designer. That is not only in marketing and communications, but broader. You really have to be very familiar with metrics. You really have to work. You have to know figures, numbers. You have to be a publisher, a developer. You have to know the behavioral sciences, and you have to be what they call the curator, the protector of the corporate personality to transform that into an authentic type of organization. Sounds very logic, but very challenging, because if this is what you are expected to do, it sounds nice on paper, but be my guest to implement this on a daily basis. It's a hell of a job. Now here are some skills that you can see. I'm not reading all these skills, but an interesting thing was the crystal ball. The crystal ball. Looking around corners, as the CEO said it. I want a CCO who can look around corners. A crystal ball that you can predict, Greenpeace is coming on Friday between 3 and 5. That's what they sometimes, and I said it just when I started this course, sometimes we might accept this statement regarding reputation management. All companies like to increase their reputation. It might be much wiser to decrease the expectations about your company. You can't continue increasing the reputation. You have to create an equal playing field in which realistic expectations are accepted by people, and then you can get a good reputation. I think we have pushed too far in reputation. Limit the expectations. That's a role that is doable for people. However, I have to be honest, and I have to conclude that CCOs are confronted with CEOs who are rather cynical. Now, what I did before I came to Madrid, I asked my colleagues in finance and in logistics and in human resources if they are aware of studies about CEO expectations about their own specialized areas too. So the chief human resource manager, the chief logistic manager, the chief marketing manager. You know what the answer was? They are all as acid about all people below them, just as they are about the CCO. So it's a little bit, it's that the big monkey on the hill. That's of course They know always better, they are more excellent than all other people. So don't think that this is only a judgment for the communication director. It's exactly the same feeling that they have about the finance, about logistics, about marketing, etc. Nevertheless, my sincere advice to you is, take this in your first conversation, maybe the second one, when they have selected you, and just don't show him but ask, so what do you expect? What kind of a CCO are you expecting actually? And then draw your conclusions before signing the contract. That's a wise thing to do, is my advice to you. Okay, there's another reason why you have to be a little bit skeptical about CEOs. There's a lot of academic study and really sophisticated study in top journals, published in top journals, that show the following. It is killing for an organization to create celebrity CEOs. Why? Because celebrity CEOs have a tendency to be overconfident, to ascribing all the successes of the company to themselves based on their majestic type of strategic selections that they made, and they have a tendency, more important, to repeat those type of tricks that they applied in the past that appear to work. 9 out of 10 financial restatements that we studied in Rotterdam for a study that we did about financial restatements and reputation, 9 out of 10 of the CEOs that ended up in jail were those type of CEOs. Overconfident, just not seeing the reality anymore. Creating an overconfident CEO is your fault, also your fault. It's not only his or her personality, it's you, the master of ceremony, that create that type of personality that you are engaged with. Be careful, be careful. That's a threatening thing. It's not good for the organization. And now I come to the key points that is the theoretical basis of this study. If you accept that the CCO is no longer the old journalist that has to be the, let's say, the powerful guy behind the scenes that create a celebrity CEO that will create a powerful reputation for the organization, if there's an other tendency necessary for organizations that creates actually CCOs, or should create CCOs, that accept the notion of we can't control it all, we have to seduce instead of to persuade, then you have to accept that organizations are crucial for the CCO and not the CEO. If organizations are crucial, you have to involve in the so-called dominant coalition instead of the CEO as a one-star CCO, the celebrity. That implies that you have to understand, you don't have to do anything, but I have to explain what dominant logic and dominant coalition actually is. That's a very well-known theory at the business school that we teach in all business schools. What is dominant logic? Dominant logic, simply said, is the logical argumentation, the rules of the game, applied by a group of people, we call them the dominant coalition, who are in command. Not only because they have stars and stripes, but also because they are seen as the senior people, the really crucial people. And what do we see? Dominant logic is a powerful instrument managed and manipulated by the dominant coalition, more specifically by the CEO. Dominant logic is no more and no less than a protocol, a set of protocols that simplify for people daily decision making. So if you have an oil company and you are in finding the oil, refining the oil, selling the oil, there are strict natural science-based protocols to do the work. Happily enough, because that creates safety, it creates predictability, it increases the efficiency of the decision-making processes. However, if that same oil company is suddenly confronted with a Greenpeace type of organization that attacks them because they are doing something, or British Petroleum that does something that is really hurting the environment, their dominant logic doesn't work anymore. Now that's a problem. So go back. You have the CCO that has to make a choice. Do I serve mainly the man at the top, or the woman at the top, or do I do the broader dominant coalition? It is clear to me that if you don't serve primarily the dominant coalition, without forgetting, of course, to serve the CEO, you will get lost. And not only you, but the organizations will get lost. Organizations do not consist of individual staffs. Organizations have a responsibility towards society and towards people who work in those type of organizations that have to maintain and to continue life in that organization for a longer period of time. And you as a CCO, or as a future CCO, have the responsibility and the duty to serve the broader community of decision makers in that organization. That's why we took this as a crucial starting point in our study. What does it mean? It means that a CCO has to influence the existing dominant logic much more strongly, indirectly by management communication and directly by own corporate messaging. And you have to realize the following. If a real change is implemented in an organization, a real change, a different dominant logic, then is the moment of truth. Because then as a CCO, you are exactly between these two parties. The old school, who are defending the old dominant logic, and then those few intellectuals, entrepreneurial driven people that want to push for that future desired new dominant logic. There you have a difficult position. That is a very difficult position, but if you survive in that battle, then you really have made a crucial step forward. So, CCOs don't have an easy job. They don't have an easy job because just like CCOs, they only have their first 100 days. After that they are killed or they are heroes. They have to learn fast. That's why they have to have the right training before they start with such a job. They have to sense the critical political situations in an organization. They have to be very careful about what they say and what they don't say. Because if you're killed during the first day, it's done. It's over now. That's what it is. Yeah, but it's true. It's a nice statement. One wrong word to the wrong ear may sink your career. You might take that into consideration for your next presentation. So, what do? We did a survey, of course, but the academics always do a survey. And based on, we were focusing on what should the CCO be responsible for, what qualities and skills, and what criteria. We used this model, and I hope that you are a little bit fresh still to follow this model, because it's all about this model. We were interested, like I said at the beginning, why is that woman or that man on the top of the hill, and why are we all here down to, let's say, to the bottom of the pyramid? That's a strange thing. Why? That all boils down to this part. What defines CCO success? Now the problem. What did I do? Did I do something wrong? No. What? Anyhow, CCO success is determined by factors I will describe in a minute. And here you see the things I just tried to explain to you regarding dominant logic. There is a dominant coalition position internally, that's clear. You have to be part of that dominant logic. You have to be you have to be taken seriously. They have to consult you. They have to listen to your advices. And last but not least, you have to have specific responsibilities, of course. That's the internal dominant coalition position. There's also an external dominant coalition position, strangely enough. That external coalition is the group of people, we call that often the old boys network, around organizations. It's suppliers, it's some crucial advisors, it's some crucial journalists, some crucial politicians. You have to be part of that group too. And there again, you have to listen very carefully. You have to communicate in a sense that people accept you. These are obvious. You have to have specific skills. I already told you. The art of communication, the science of communication, the art and the science of management. That's what you have to do. And then you have specific roles. We distinguished 20 characteristics. Let's start with success. I think that's what I love, of course. There's a measurement scale coming out of it. Now we can measure what CCO success will do. As I'm not sure that you said that, but otherwise I'm saying it now. The corporate excellence will help us in making a book out of this. We are interviewing now top people in the world, and one of the things that we are doing, will do, and that will be provided to you all, is a checklist. We call that a self-assessment rating test based on what we produce. And you go to the internet and you will find your own score on what you are achieving, so to speak, and what you still have to do to develop. That's of course the crucial part. But then you have to accept the measurement of success. Now, what did we do? Success, the arrow. We came with 13 statements and asked both the 177 or whatever. I cannot remember all these numbers. A lot of communication persons, but I also asked a lot of CEOs, and we came purely based on the numbers to 4 characteristics. 2 internal. You have to create a top-of-mind awareness among these top people, internal coalition, external coalition. They have to know your organization and they have to know you. That's important. They have to know you. Secondly, you still have to be the trusted advisor for the CEO. That does not go away if you extend to the dominant coalition. It stays. What I expect actually is the following, what will happen. In politics, where people are much more advanced in many ways than in the business world, by the way, they make a distinction between the CCO and the spokesman or personal coach of the minister. Why wouldn't we do that in the business world too? Make a distinction between a manager, a professional, and let's say running the organization as a totality, and having that special coach, spokesperson for the top CCO. Why not? Why not? That would be, I think that would be a safe idea. So second, internally you have to create, internally it's about creating alignments among your employees, that they will support the strategy, and the other internal thing is that the CEO will be served well. Externally you have to create awareness, and last but not least, and that's obvious to me, that's the word impact. You have to create impact with your communication. You can have all kind of nice things, but if nobody had turned up here, turned on here to this evening, that would be a disaster. Then you have very nice design as Corporate Excellence Center, but nobody was here. That would have been quite a disaster. It has to create impact. There's no doubt about it. So we have 4 measures, and we created this symbol for it. And we will make a scale out of this, and we can measure now, and of course not you or your department, but your clients have to measure the degree of professionalism that you exhibit on these type of things. Now, if success is clear, you have to go to the second one. What roles are demanded for people? What kind of roles are people fulfilling? We distinguished 20 roles, and as you see, that must be my military background, I've made a distinction between a 1-star general, 2-star general, etc. So now there's a 1-star CCO, a 2-star, a 3-star, and a 4-star CCO. Now the world top is the 4-star CCO. Now I can tell you, if you have been in the army, most of you probably never went there, lucky you, but I was obliged to do that. But I can tell you, becoming a general is the top type of happiness for somebody who is a professional in the army. They only don't realize that if they are becoming a general, that they are only a junior general because they have only 1 star. That's interesting. So there are hierarchies, just as there are hierarchies in CCOs. So if you are the CCO, take one advice from me. Don't think that you're ready, because there's always growth to the next phase. Now, if you see this here, you have 4 stars. This is not the lowest, because a general, becoming a general, is the top of your career. Even if you stay at a 1-star CCO level, that's already a very great achievement. Like I said, whether or not you can grow into a 4-star CCO depends not only on your qualities, it depends on the industry you are, it depends on the maturity of reputation management in your organization, and it depends largely whether or not the C-suite will accept that you are doing the most professional application of reputation management. Now, roles, they vary and they accumulate. So they start simply trusted advisor of the CEO, managing network with journalists. This is very much media and CEO related, the basics you could say. This is much more and then it's all accumulating. This is much more being the diplomat, acting in all these networks, representing your company, connecting the dots. That is what you do actually. CCO roles. Let's look at the internal dominant coalition. That's it's about frequency of interactions with the C-suite and the other members in the organization. It's about the quality of your consultancy work, the perceptions of your quality, and of course your resources. Now, the assumption is that CCOs will only be successful if they are taken seriously in that dominant coalition and if they are really consulted. Because you can be taken seriously in many ways. You can be taken seriously because you have once in a while a very important contribution in a debate, or you are really consulted. You are really part of the decision-making process to such degree that people won't make a decision without you. You can only do that if you understand the business and if they perceive the added value of your contributions, and that only works if you create impact. Now, here again, same logic for every type of CCO star. You see, let's say the basics, again, frequency of interactions is with the CEO and the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer. If you look at the 4-star CCO, they have a broad range of contacts in the organization. So surely not only with the C-suite people, but also with other ranks. Here you see what the reality is. Those were honest answers. There were also, I'm pretty sure, answers that were not true. People referred to salaries that they made that were beyond control, and I can tell you I have had a lot of confidential conversations with people in at least 10 different countries. I've never heard anybody who made those type of salaries, so I think a little bit of exaggeration has been applied in this study, but that's how they report it. But this is true, if you ask me. This is true. What do you see? You see that they are actually mainly talking to the top of the organization. There's hardly any contact with business unit people. And more important, there's no contact with the strategy officer. That's a quite peculiar type of observation, I must say. So, now then the intensity, of course, you have to have, if you only consulted once a year, yeah, so what? You have to be consulted more frequently, and here again you see the same type of logic. It starts with a modest niveau, a minimum niveau you could say, not modest, a minimum level, and then it increases to higher degrees of intensity that they do. Here again, the consultation on topics like business strategy, marketing strategy, business performance, business decisions, business positioning even, is really below 60, which is quite let's say, a point for improvements. Let's put it that way, because I do think it's a point of improvement, a necessity to come to an improvement. Responsibilities of tasks. People have to have a minimum level of responsibility, and especially people supporting them to implement those responsibilities. Again, the minimum requirement is setting the strategy for corporate communication, managing corporate communication, etc., etc. One of the main findings of this study, in my view, is the following. If we look at the whole type of answers that you see in this survey, one crucial thing is coming out of it. And that is, people in CCOs are still mainly communication people and not corporate communication people. They have the emphasis still on the communication role and not on the managerial role in paying attention to changing the corporate function, so to speak. Now, blah blah blah. You can see these things. Frequency and strength doesn't matter. Because I'm giving a signal now that I have to do it a little bit faster. You can see all these details. I like you to reflect on this. This is important, if you ask me. I think the main and I'm a little bit proud of that, to be honest. And there has been a lot of debate with Angel, so I'm very glad for his input in this methodology. It was interesting. We have a measure now for CCO success. Now I'm pretty sure that there will be all kind of debates whether or not this is right, but I kindly ask you to think about the following. We have had years of debate, decades of debates about how to measure reputation. Now that's generally accepted. I strongly recommend you to accept this measure too, the measure of CCO success. You know why? Because just like reputation is accepted now all over the world to do it in a specific way, you have a number that you can compare yourself and your own organization with other ones. If you have a number that you can say, our CCO, me as a CCO, I have a number 85, that is a benchmark that you can create in that way, and that creates the beginning or the maturity of the more mature creation of a profession. And that is important not only for the people here in Spain, but I think that is really a conclusion that is vitally important for the people in many other countries that are struggling with exactly the same problem. So I would like to leave it like this and open up for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Excelente. Muchas gracias, profesor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enhorabuena por el trabajo. Enhorabuena. Ahora nos toca a todos los que estamos aquí.
Now it is up to all of us to go further in depth on the valuable conclusions that have been put on the table right now. I think he's given it a lot of food for thought. I take one away, which is that the management of intangible assets, reputation, brand communication, public affairs are more and more important for companies. It is more and more important to do the global management of all of them, and I think it's something that it's becoming more and more evident, and companies are becoming more and more aware of this. To keep on moving forward on this path, corporate excellence is an excellent foundation, and I'm sure we'll keep on doing great work in the learning about intangible assets management. This is the challenge that we have all ahead of us. I want to thank the speaker, and I want to congratulate once more the 14 future graduates for tomorrow, and that's all. Thank you very much for coming.